Can you hear me? Yeah.
Someone gave me a microphone. You'd think after 20 years they'd have learned, but here we are. Welcome everyone to Creative Spark, using creative writing to enhance grant writing. If you're a little cold and you need to stand up and move around, we will understand, but we would just hope that that moving around does not require you to leave the room. We kind of want to keep you here. So we're going to go ahead and get started because we honor your time and we want to get through all of the material. And I am Sharon Skinner, and do you want to flip the hand?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Sharon Skinner, and I am an author, a book coach, a grant GPC, a freelance editor. I like creative stuff. I like creative writing. I like to write. I wanted to be a writer when I grew up. This is what I wanted to do. I woke up one day and went, oh, I'm a technical writer. That's not what I meant. And then I forayed out into poetry, short stories, and ultimately novels. And these are some of my books up here that you can see across the bottom of the screen. And I am co-presenting today with my illustrious partner.
And I am Beth Oldham. My pen name is Elizabeth Oldham, so if you look me up on Amazon, you got to go formal. I am also a creative writer who all of a sudden was a technical writer. I've been writing grants for 30 years. I'm a GPC. I write primarily U.S. federal grants, so it's quite a shift into creative writing, but that's where my heart is. I also always wanted to be a writer. I had two goals in life. One was to save the world. The other was to write novels, so I've done one, and the other is a work in progress, but I look at grant writing as my contribution. I've been writing all my life, and just published the first book in May 2023 and the second book in March of this year. So I mean, how many of you guys are writers? Yeah, creative writers. Like, is anybody else? Yeah. Anybody here write poetry? A few of them? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Fiction? Yeah. How about creative nonfiction or memoir? Not so many of those.
How about self-help
A
nonfiction?
few people from online are saying yes, fiction.
Fiction?
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody writing nonfiction, self-help, that sort of thing?
Some are doing poetry and novels. Candace.
That's true.
That's why we're here, right?
Yeah, we pretty much do that on a daily basis, don't we? Okay.
All right, so what are we here for today? We're going to talk about why we're even here. I think we kind of touched on that. But we are also going to have a writing prompt. As writers, I love writing prompts. I love something that makes my brain start thinking in unique ways. So we've got some prompts for you, and we're going to take some time to write, take some time to maybe read and share. We are going to talk about, I'm going to fall over it. We're going to talk about how the creative elements fit into grant writing, and we're not talking about creating fiction in our grants. That is not what we're talking about. And what it looks like when we put it all together, how it can all fit into a grant proposal. We will also have a writing exercise that's different from the writing prompt. Using your brain in different ways, I think, is very, very helpful to get all your thoughts and ideas swirling. And then we talk about moving forward, how to keep creating and incorporating that into your daily lives. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers. If you do want to ask questions, go ahead and throw your hand up, but there will be plenty of time at the end.
So we thought that we would do this because I know there are a lot of people who write grant proposals, develop grant proposals, work and live in the grant world, who are very creative people. And most of them are people who know how to write and want to write. And I have helped a number of those people work on books, write for kids, that sort of thing, because in my side gig, I'm a book coach and a freelance editor. So we decided that Beth decided she wanted to do this presentation, and she wanted a co-pilot. So I got picked, yeah. So
yeah, I actually talked to Kimberly Hayes Demuga, who runs the Heyday Book Club, with Amanda Day, and they run a book club, and she's an author as well. And she suggested doing this, but then conveniently wasn't available. So she suggested Sharon, who's been a wonder and a great mentor. If anybody's ever considering doing a presentation at GrantSummit, it's really great to have a mentor and somebody who helps you along the first time, and I'm very appreciative.
So how many people here ended up being a grant writer or grant proposal developer because, hey, you write well, write us a grant?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many people got into this because, well, I know I write well and I want to do something with my writing and I want to write grants? Yeah, okay. Because we're all writers, right? That's what we are at heart. And there's both an art and a science to grant proposal development. You gotta, without MSU, which I'm gonna say it the safe way, making stuff up. There's both a science and an art to what we do. But there's creativity in how we tell our stories, right?
Yeah.
We're creative people because there's creativity. We get a little bit of opportunity in how we tell our stories, especially when we're writing to a specific funder, because we are always keeping our target audience in mind, right? Mm-hmm. Always keeping our target audience in mind.
Yeah. And you have to be creative when you're telling the story in the grant, because sometimes the facts are dry, sometimes the methodology is dry, but you want to put it together into a story that they're going to follow, that your reader is going to follow. And that is what we do. We tell stories. We tell stories of communities. We tell stories of problems. We tell stories of solutions. And hopefully our grant puts that all together into a proposal that makes sense and is convincing.
And one of the aspects of that I talk about, and I've talked about in other presentations that I've done for grant writing, is that narrative thread, that golden narrative thread that has to be woven through the entire application or the entire story from start to finish. You start with your need statement, and that must tie into the next component of what you plan to do, the project planning. That must tie into your outcomes. That must tie into your budget. That narrative thread is drawn through. So we see this as something that is inherent in all types of writing that makes sense to the reader brain, right?
And a lot of grants aren't seen as creative works, which they're not typically creative works, but they do involve creation. But it's also data-driven and logic driven. So the two sides of our brains, the logical side and the creative side, they feed each other. So it's not one isolated part of your brain working. It's all of it. So you need some balance. I find that my creative practices feed my grant writing practice. I've learned a lot through both writing grants and creatively, but they work together and make me a better writer all around.
Okay.
All right, so first writing prompt. We have 4 photos. Can you all see those okay? What we're hoping you guys will do is choose one of these photos as a prompt and just start writing. And it can be anything you want to write. It can be a fictional story. It could be a memory. It could be poetry. Whatever you feel like writing. We're going to take 5 minutes so that you can all get your creative juices flowing. And we should have some music. You want to sing?
No. They don't want me to sing.
Maybe I should put mine. And we are going to ask for people to share, but only if they want to.
1 minute warning.
It's quite long. Could go that way. Okay, if I hand it to you, maybe.
I can flip it over.
Yeah.
All right, time's up. Did everybody get a chance to write something? How'd that feel? Did it feel good? Did it feel strange?
Does anybody write on their phone? Yeah, I've done that. I tend not to mostly, but I have done it.
Does anybody want to share anything that they wrote? Do we have any brave souls who want to come up and share? Come on in. Oh. Tell us who you are and which picture you picked, and then give us a little bit of what you wrote.
Okay, I'm Emily Cabanis, and I'm from North Carolina. I love to write, and one thing I learned in a writing workshop is that you start by doing this, which is like all the things you would say about how bad your work is, and it doesn't make any sense, and I'm writing in circles. Just let the hand do the work. Okay, so I picked the dark picture on the far right, primarily because I was sitting in the back and I couldn't really tell what it was, so I liked it. And I started by writing what I saw. And I wrote green, light, dark. This is the story. I woke up surrounded in darkness. Where am I? What is that sound? It's hollow, echoey. Where am I? I can't see anything. I can't see anything. I keep listening to the sound of what is it? Wind? Something moving, not very close, but there. It's not scary, but I can't tell what it is. I close my eyes and try to only listen. It's cold. My mind is willing me to wake up. I'm not asleep. I'm not dreaming. My eyes are just closed. Oh, shut up, mind. I try again to silence my own internal voice so I can just listen to that sound. Breathe. In and out. Slower this time. In. Out. I'm back to that sound. It's back in my mind again. It's got my attention. It's not wind, it's, then time's up.
She hooked me. I would want to know what happened next. Good job, good job.
We have one from online as well.
Excellent, please.
Let me see if I can bring it back here. Okay. Oh, Candace writes, she zips on her scooter, dress flapping behind, sneakers say later, to all she's resigned. Her hair's doing jazz, every strand out of place, but she grins at the wind like it's all just a race. Goodbye to the rules she was told to obey. She scoots into freedom, one kick and away.
Love it,
Love
it. So good. All right,
Another one right there?
we have time for one more. Who we got? All right, come on up.
Thank you. My name's Melody. This is a total experiment because I'm not a writer. I'm a grant writer, but that's about it. I followed the center picture of the elders. Off on our last hurrah, we hobbled into the vast airport setting, our joints already pleading with us to turn and go back home. We knew we wouldn't be able to travel any longer due to progressing Parkinson's disease, limitations, and failing joints. It seemed almost unimaginable to have to transport ourselves and our luggage all the way to gate G45 to board our plane. Fortunately, a kind person approached and asked, "Would you like an escort or some assistance to get to your plane?" Ah, my body breathed a sigh of relief. My knees, my feet, and my hip could rest a while. We were so grateful to the kind stranger. We made it on time with far less pain than anticipated. We gained hope that the second chapter of our adventure might be positively possible.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's some very good writers in here. Yeah, I'm not a writer, I'm a grant writer. I got you, I got you.
So we're doing a juggle here. So when we talk about the creative elements that we use in grants, it's a lot of the same things that are in novels or other pieces of work. Sharon touched on the target audience.
Yeah, you always want to know who you're writing for, right? That's really critical. I mean, if you're writing to, like if you're writing an NIH grant and you're writing to the feds, it's going to be a lot different than if you're writing to the local family foundation who loves kids, right? You always want to keep your target audience in mind. And that's the same thing with your poetry, with your novels, I write everything from picture book up through adults, so depending on my audience, I have to be very specific about what I'm doing and what types of things I'm putting in my stories, and how many subplots can you have in a picture book? None. How many subplots can you have in a chapter book? Not really more than one. How many can you have in a middle grade? Oh, now we're talking, and then as we progress. But with a grant, you do have subplots, right? You have those underlying layers that you have to include in a grant. So always, we look to our target audience as the primary starting place.
And it used to be, and who knows what's going to happen, but it used to be with a federal grant, you assumed that there was going to be a panel of reviewers that had some knowledge of the content area. But that's not necessarily the case if you're applying to a community foundation. They might know your community really well. They might not know your subject matter at all. If you're applying to a corporation, they might not know neither your community nor your subject matter, but they know what they want to fund. So you want to speak to that. You want to speak to that audience. And one of the first things that happens when you write a novel, it's a learning curve, but you start sending out letters to agents or publishers, and they immediately want to know what your target audience is. And so you need to know that. And my first novel was narrated by a dog, and everyone assumed it was a middle grade novel, which it wasn't. It was for adults. But but know what it is ahead of time. And that will help your publishing and or grant writing journeys.
And we talked earlier about the narrative thread and how that golden thread, and I call it the golden thread, that has to be woven through and show up all throughout the narrative. And that's the same with grants. It's the same when you're telling a good story. It's the same in a novel. It doesn't always have to be first and foremost, but it has to peak up and it has to tie everything together, that linear development that you want. Now, structure's another thing. With grants, it's very linear. We don't get to play with our structure. We don't get 3-act, 4-act, spiral, all of the things. But with other types of writing, poetry, and other types of storytelling, we get lots and lots of structures that we can use. We get to play. And that is really good for your brain.
And one of the first, when you write fiction, I write fiction, usually there's an inciting incident that kicks the whole book off. And there's a main character who's going to struggle with that and not know how to respond. And so the whole book is them trying to figure out how to respond to this. And there's all kinds of other stuff going on. But the story is of this person changing. And at the end, they have to change, or else there's no point to the book. Either they're going to change and then the story is going to become resolved. And in a grant, it's very similar. You're writing the needs section. You're describing what the problem is. And then we describe what we're going to do to address it. After that, we're going to talk about how we know how to address it, which is because we have the experience of doing so. And then that feeds into what it's going to produce. So there's a narrative line through, and it starts with the needs section, and it keeps going. You're describing, and you're always going back to that need. Just like in the novel where your main character is still dealing with that issue that came up and they're just dealing all wrong. You don't want to do that in the grant. You want to tell them you're going to solve it right. But
that's
it's also logic. I mean, we're very familiar. We're very familiar. Yeah, logic is a different. She writes fantasy and science fiction, so logic is different. It still exists, but you know, in my fictional world, my dog doesn't talk, but some may. But you have to set that foundation. So our logic models start in grants. It starts with the resources that we're putting into it, and then the activities that we're going to do with those resources, and then what's coming out of it, our outputs, and then the last column is usually our impact. What are those outcomes it's going to resolve? It's very similar in a book. You're making, and it has to be logical, because if all of a sudden for your plot to work, a dog has to fly, then you better have put that into the very beginning. It must be in your resources section, because if a dog suddenly flies, it's not going to be believable. They're going to go, what? Your reader's not going to understand, and they might jettison the book.
How many people here have done enough writing they understand the term no deus maxima? Yeah, or machina. It's machina. Yeah. You do not want the gods to rush in and fix things in a novel. You want your protagonist, your character, to do the fixing. They must have agency. See, there's this really cool stuff, and here's where I nerd out. There's this really cool brain science stuff behind creative writing. And what they did was, one of the things they did was they did this experiment where they took and they put a person on the West Coast and a person on the East Coast, and they plugged them both into an audiobook to listen to an audiobook at the same time, and they MRI'd their brains, and guess what? Their brains lit up the same ways at the same times. Because when you go on a journey in a book, you're going on a journey in a book. You are with the character. You're experiencing it as if it's your journey. It's so cool. Right.
And if that logic isn't there, it draws the reader out of your book.
Yeah.
And that's like the no for any writer. You don't want the reader to think, that sounds weird.
Or that doesn't make sense. So I have a phrase called hook 'em and book 'em. And it's a Sharonism, but you're welcome to use it. And it's all about hooking your reader into the story and not letting them go. Because we have so many distractions out in the world right now. And you want to do the same thing. You want your prose to read smoothly in your book to keep your reader engaged, just the same way you want the reviewer. You know the 12-12-12 rule for reviewers? Anybody? No? So the reviewer has 12 proposals to review. It's 12 o'clock at night, and yours is their 12th one. Yeah. You want to make it very logical, very readable, and make sense. You don't want continuity issues. Anybody watch movies and go, hey, wait a minute, that glass was just half empty, now it's half full. No continuity issues. We don't want continuity issues in our grants or in our stories, right? So you want to watch for that sort of thing.
We also need compelling stakes. And that's true for any kind of writing. I mean, if you want the reader to keep reading, they need to believe that there's something at stake. And with grants, it's fairly easy. We've got, there are consequences if people don't eat, if people are homeless, if somebody can't get transportation to the hospital. There are very real compelling stakes. Yeah,
and in your stories, again, nobody wants to read about a very nice picnic on a beautiful day. It's boring. I mean, we all want to do that, but we don't want to read about it. We want to see how the character goes through it, how they have to work and struggle to get to the end and either make that change through their decisions and the consequences that their decisions and their actions set up so that they're a changed person at the end. Or there are novels, of course, where there is no change, where the character doesn't change. I don't read a lot of those. But some people do, right? So there's your tragedies where they don't learn anything and they don't get anything. Oh, those are not fun. Everybody dies in the end. I used to tell my daughters, they would ask me, well, what happens in this book? And I used to say, everybody dies in a big conflagration in the end. Every book they asked me that about. I wanted them to read the book, not ask me about the book. So yeah, it's important that we have high stakes and they don't have to be world saving. It doesn't have to be a superhero thing. This can be emotional stakes in a book, right? Some of the best stories are where it's something really emotional at stake.
And you want to make it personal to the reader, too. They want to feel it. It may be something that they have no experience with, but you want to describe it in ways that they get it.
Show, don't tell. Okay, I'm going to go off on my little tangent right now about show, don't tell. If you are getting into creative writing or you are loving on creative writing, it's not a rule. It's a guideline, and it doesn't mean what people think it means. So show, don't tell means show us what's happening in real time. Telling is summary, and that's okay. Sometimes you need summary. Otherwise, your book would be 11,000 pages long, right? You need some summary to reground the reader or to change location or to get us where we need to go. But the important bits, the emotionally critical bits, should be shown to us through what's happening with the character and how they're feeling and what their interiority is and how they're seeing the world in the moment.
Okay. So we also want our writing to be persuasive. We want there to be a reason for them to read it, but also believe that, in a grant, to believe that the solution you're offering is going to fix the problem or address the problem, or that's going to make the changes that you're looking for in your community. If you're writing fiction, that you want your reader to be going through the same journey that your main character is, and understanding why they're making or not making the right decisions. And so part of your task is to build up the main character, the personality, and show that so that when there is a change, the reader understands that and doesn't disbelieve. Okay. All right. So what are we doing when we're putting it together? We have to really understand the power of language.
Yeah, and this is especially critical for poetry. So the person who online did put together that nice poem very quickly like that, but it's also meaningful in what we read or what were read in the room too, because the language that was used was very tonally correct for what the picture that the individuals were writing about. They did a beautiful job of hitting that tone and emotion in the words that they chose, in the things that their character was thinking about or seeing or experiencing. So the power of language is really critical. I'm all about the power of language. There's a woman online who does a blog post, and I think it's every day, 5 days a week, and it's a sentence from a book, and then she takes it apart and shows you how it was put together, and I love stuff like that, right? But word choice is really critical, and it's even more critical now in grants than it ever was, because you can't use 3 words where you need to use 1 word. You don't have the room for it anymore. You have to do what I call word sculpting. You got to go in there, you write the grant, and then you got to go in and then sculpt it down so it fits, right? We got all these limitations. So that's critical, and word choice and language are super important in that.
If anyone writes federal grants, you'll know that word choice is very important right now. I went through 5 different grants this last spring that had already been submitted, but we were asked to remove certain words and offensive language or offensive words that were not in favor. So it is very important to think about what words you use, not only to reduce the amount of words, which is, I think, trying to reduce the amount of words in my language can really tighten it up, and it really makes it much more impactful, because and especially in writing grants, you use so many words. Well, we think that, or whatever, just stripping all that extra out of it and just say it, just say the impact words. I had another point, and I can't remember it right now. But yes. So say there's a man and he walks into a room. That's all understandable, right? What happens if he staggers into a room? I mean, it's just 1 word, but it's the same action. Or he crawls into a room. Or if you're like my brother, you swagger into a room.
There is no, see, I tell my clients all the time, walk is a perfectly fine word, but why use it all the time when you have so many other amazing options to use, right? Now, if you're writing dialogue, said is a perfectly fine word, and we're actually getting away from dialogue tags. This is a hint for those of you who think you might want to write a book and maybe get an audiobook someday. we always said for many years that the word said would disappear on the page for the reader, and that is true. But it does not disappear from the ear of the listener when it's she said, he said, they said, he said, she said. Audiobooks, what we're doing is we're getting rid of dialogue tags. We're using a lot more action tags to denote who's speaking. So just a little hint for you there if you're a creative writer.
Do you want to explain an action tag?
An action tag is the difference between how dare you, he yelled, which is dialogue tag. How dare you, he slammed his hand on the table. Action.
So you're not saying he said that or he yelled that, but you're
Right.
still giving that
You're-
indicator of who's doing that.
So we still know it was George, right? George said versus George pounded the table, right? Dialogue versus action.
Another one that's big, I belong to a writing group that we meet every Monday and we critique each other's works. And a lot of writers will say, you know, he searched the room or he looked or he saw. Whereas you could just say, just show us what he saw. You know, all of a sudden something appeared in front of his eyes or, you know, like, but remove the filters of he saw, he learned, he looked, I believe. That stuff, it's just extra words. You don't, when you're saying I believe, just say what you believe.
It also creates narrative distance in a work of fiction. So you can write things at an arm's length for your reader, or you can pull them close in, depending on the language that you're using. You want less narrative distance when you want your reader to experience what's going on. If you read, anybody here read like murder mysteries, whodunits, or anything like that? The reveal is always done at a narrative arm's length distance, almost always. But when you're reading a thriller, we're putting the narrative distance real close because we want people on the edge of their seat. And you can see the difference. And it can go in and out, but it's depending on what you want the reader to be experiencing at the time.
And one idea, you know, feeds another. When you're exercising the creative part of your brain, that's going to feed the more logical part of your brain. Like I was saying, you know, our working in writing grants has strengthened my creative writing. However, I've had to weed all that technical language out of my creative writing. People are like, that doesn't sound like a dog said that. Like, yeah, well, a dog didn't say it, it's thinking. But yeah, so you have to, though they're two separate ways of writing, they will support each other and feed each other. And the practice of writing in itself is what we're after. It's not necessarily, it has to be one way or another, and you're just going to become a stronger writer. So, now.
We have another writing exercise for you.
Okay, so we are going to pick a fairy tale character, identify the problem that they're facing, and develop a solution to this problem for a grant application. So, you know, just a few examples. Little Red Riding Hood, what's her problem? What's the problem she's facing? Grandma's, well, transportation, she's walking through the woods.
Right? Gotta get to Grandma's house somehow.
Yeah, and there's a crime issue, maybe. There's crime in the woods. There's a wolf. 3 Little Pigs. Housing?
Housing.
They have a housing problem, yeah. What about Hansel and Gretel? Food access.
Food access, yeah. Good.
They need food.
So,
and Cinderella. One more. Cinderella.
That's right.
She's got a couple issues. She's living. Domestic abuse. She's facing violence at home, and then there's a poverty issue. At least she's being held in poverty.
Right. So pick your favorite fairy tale character. It doesn't have to be one that we've put out there for you. We're going to give you 5 minutes for this one as well, and then at the end we will ask for a couple of brave souls to come up and share what their proposal idea is for their fairy tale character.
Take a selfie. I'm going to take a selfie. You think? Do I need to ask?
Real quick, is it okay with all of you if we take a selfie?
We take a selfie with you guys? We're going to be backlit. let me get, oops. Okay, thank you. It's okay. Well, that's all right. I think we're fine. I feel like it's a test. I feel like we've got to give them a test. We think alike. We think alike. One minute. God damn, I keep on that.
All right, that's time. All right, brave souls. Anyone want to come up and share their fairy tale problem and solution? Oh, yes, please come up.
There's a guy at the.
Tell us who you are, and then tell us who your character is. And then.
I'm Bethania from California, and I'm my character was Belle from, what is it?
Beauty and the Beast.
I kind of forgot a lot of the story, so I'm going to do my best. But medieval France has an ongoing issue with women disempowered. Their problem is so pronounced that Belle was forced to live in servitude, not just to a man, but to a man who also is a non-human and a cryptid. Our organization, Empowering Women in France, En Vivre, EUFEM, can help women like Belle. EUFEM has community workers who reach out to community workers who reach out to women vulnerable women and women living on the fringes of society, linking them to resources and job skill training. So they have the tools necessary to achieve financial independence. Our organization is seeking funding for bridge funding for women in our program so they can maintain their security and independence while in our program until they're able to achieve financial independence and security.
Give it up for that. Excellent. Well done. We have somebody online. We're going to go ahead and hear from somebody online.
Yeah, Claire mentions Rapunzel's tower is located in a remote part of the woods and has no discernible egress. The purpose of this grant proposal is to procure funds in order to purchase an OSHA-approved ladder so she may enter and exit the tower at her own leisure. In providing this ladder, Rapunzel will not only be able to leave and move to the kingdom of Corona, but she'll also be able to escape the solitary confinement imposed upon her by her abusive adoptive mother, Gothel.
Wonderful,
Nice.
wonderful. Oh, that's great. We have time for another. I think I saw this hand up first. Tell us who you are and then give it to us.
Hi, my name's Hunter. I'm here to represent the interest of young Hansel and Gretel of the county of Hamburg. Now, we face unprecedented times. Now, families, individuals, even children are going hungry day by day, and this problem is only getting worse. In fact, Hansel and Gretel, two young children living without parents, just struggling to survive day by day. They got so hungry, they wandered into the woods, miles away from their home. And in their hunger, in their confusion, they literally ate the house of an old woman that lived in the woods. Convinced in their delirium that they were going to eat her. Now, I can't attest to what human may taste like, but ultimately, they were so hungry that they thought that wall insulation was cotton candy. So deprived of sweets and everyday joys that we take for granted. But with your support, we can purchase small items that can make food production, turn it from a scarcity to a surplus. Things like food processors, microwaves, even like small coolers. Anything that would allow families, children like Hansel and Gretel to have something to come back to, whether it's at the end of the day, end of school, end of work. And with that, food defines the future for so many people, and it goes underrepresented. So I'm hoping that with your support, we can create a better and healthier future for our children, for our communities, and for the world.
Well done.
We got some acting.
Yeah.
We got some theater cred here.
Really well done. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Kate posted a picture of a popcorn bucket online.
A popcorn bucket. Okay, so moving forward, how do you keep your creative passions alive? Well, I will say one thing about Grant the GrantSummit and Grant Professionals Association. I got into writing grants because I was good at it, and people started, and I was actually a program manager, but people started giving me grants and said, hey, could you help with this? Could you help with this? So I told my boss I need to go get some training in how to be a grant writer because I'm suddenly doing it. So I came to this conference in 2003. It was called something else. I came to this conference, and I found my people. Like, I all of a sudden realized everyone here knows what I do, and that wasn't the case before. So I think one of the best things to say about nurturing creative passions or any passion you have is find the people who do it. Find your peeps.
Yeah, and there are a lot of really, if you are really have decided this is something you want to do, the creative side, open up that part of your creativity, your heart, your mind. There are organizations out there for you. The Authors Guild is one of them. There's Ally, which is the Alliance of Independent Authors, which is all about self-publishing. So Authors Guild is really for your traditional publishing path. Ally is your independent or self-publishing. There's the Arizona State Poetry Society that I belong to, but there are poetry societies all across the country in their own states.
I'm a member of the BC Federation of Writers. I'm in Canada. I'm in British Columbia, so my group is the BC Federation of Writers.
And I was a little worried about that Hansel and Gretel story, but it didn't go where I thought it might. So, but if you wanted to go there, you know, there is the Horror Writers Association. There's the Independent Book Publishers Association, which is also for independent publishers, and the National Association of Memoir Writers. For those of you who are brave enough to embark on writing memoir, which in my opinion is one of the most intimate and difficult paths to go on. Memoir is tough. It's not easy to do well, but there are people who do an amazing job with it.
Then we have the romance writers, which is not in my purview at all. but romance is the top-selling genre of books throughout the world. Yeah.
And if you're writing for kids, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, those are your go-to people. It is not a bunny eat bunny group. They're good people, very supportive, much like GPA. So, and then do you belong to? I belong to
Nope. These are all her.
Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association, and then Sisters in Crime, which actually has a whole branch of Misters in Crime now. So you don't have to feel like you can't be there if you're, one of the guys. And then Southwest Writers if you're in the southwest part of the country, but there are regional groups all over the nation. So these are places to find your peeps. You can find them online. You can find them locally. You can go to your local library and say, hey, do you have a writer's program? I've been a writer in residence 5 different years for the local libraries in the state of Arizona, where they paid me a stipend to come in and teach writing and help people with their creative work. And so check with your library, see what's out there, see what kind of local community stuff is going on in your neighborhood.
And it can be really intimidating to join a professional association or a writing association, but just like with GPA, it's a very supportive environment. People are doing the same thing as you, and you're not competing against each other. There's so many readers out there. It's all about building up solidarity, and especially because writing is a very, very individual task. I mean, I write at home by myself, so it's nice to have a group to throw things off of.
Yeah, it's nice to have a critique group or beta readers or people who are, doing the same thing and understand it, or at least in your corner, so.
Yeah. So takeaways. We are all creative creatures. Writing a grant is a creative process.
Yeah, I mean, look at the stories you all just wrote today based on the prompts and based on our fairy tale solution prompt. So, I mean, awesome job on that. We're all creative. We've all got that in us.
So how do we keep nurturing our creativity? I think it's pretty easy. Reading, writing, and storytelling. And, I've been a reader since I could decipher those marks on the page. I've been a writer since I could hold a pencil. But there was a time in my life when I had little kids and I couldn't do either of those, but I did do storytelling, whether it was just making up stories or, reading to them was also something I did. Read kids' books.
Anybody familiar with The Moth? Storytelling? Yeah.
And support both sides of your brain. So it's not just about, focusing on creative writing or focusing on technical writing, both of them will feed each other. So if you just focus on the craft of writing, you're going to become a better writer, and you'll be able to expand.
Yeah, you can apply it across the board. I call it feeding the hopper. Pour it in here so that when you're working, it comes organically out from you.
And how do we create, or how do we incorporate creative elements in your grant? You want to write to your target audience, know who's going to be reading what you're sending out. Craft a narrative that has a through line and it addresses the problem. Keep it logical so that nobody has to make any giant leaps in their belief system, in their beliefs.
Yeah, and this is another thing, too, when you're writing fiction. If you write fantasy or science fiction and you've built a world and you have all these rules around magic or science, and then you break your own rules, you're going to lose your reader. So you don't want to do that. So
Yeah, readers notice. Something just sticks wrong, and they're like, wait a second. And I've gone back in books and thought, they said something there that doesn't fit here. Make your stakes compelling, whether it's a grant or a creative work. You want your reader to keep turning that page because they want to know what's going to happen or want to know how you're going to solve that problem. And be persuasive. And that's not saying, that's not arguing. That's just developing, crafting a piece of writing that makes sense and that people can follow. And moving forward, find your peeps.
find your peeps.
That's very important.
You found your grant peeps here, so there are places for you in your other types of writing.
Yeah. So access your network and exercise creativity. And I have one thing that I remember from that very first GrantSummit conference that I went to in 2003. I don't even remember the topic of the workshop or who said this. A woman stood up and she said, she just gave us the title of one of the grants that she'd written. And I'm just going to say the title because it's stuck in my head since then. And you tell me if you understand what she's writing about. It's called Pink Collar, Pink Ribbon, Pink Slips. It was women who have been fired because they've been given a breast cancer diagnosis. And so she was writing to address that. But that title, I mean, it's a very creative title, and it's very impactful. Anything that we haven't said that people, we're now at times for questions. So
Yeah.
We have more and more limited space, it seems to talk about. And I do feel like when you get listing the programs and the activities, and it gets dry. And I was trying to work on finding a way to use an actual client story to discuss the programs and benefits. What are your thoughts on how
Yeah,
to do
I've
that?
done that, and it works beautifully, depending on the funder that you're targeting, of course, but especially with your family foundations and things like that. If you can hit those heartstrings, we do a lot of tribal gaming grants where I am in our communities in Arizona, and the council, the folks that read those grants aren't the council members, they're members of the tribe. So we use words like community, and we write programs for children and the elderly and, community. And so we do like to use examples of an individual. We don't use names, but we give, some of the particulars to show how a person goes through that path. So this person came to us in need, and this is the kind of need they had. And by the end of the proposal, they have successfully graduated the program, and this is what, happened for them. And the key is that when you're writing that narrative arc, remember that the hero of the story is not the funder. The hero of the story is that individual who actually went through the program and was successful. Yes.
We have one question here. If there's time for questions, I have one. Says, Kara says, do the speakers have recommendations for how to find time for creative writing outside of work?
You got to make the time. You've got to You've got to nurture yourself, and you've got to be kind to yourself and give yourself the opportunity to do that, because a lot of times you're not going to make the time otherwise. There's always something pulling at us. Just like a reader in a book is being pulled at by so many different things that they could be distracted by, and they could be pulled right out of your story. You as a writer need to make a date with yourself. I'm going to make a date with myself every Friday it doesn't have to be every day. People say, oh, if you're a writer, you have to write every day. Well, no, you don't. You can write in small bits. You can write once a week. You can write 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Do you know if you write 150 words a day at the end of a month, how many words that is? Don't ask me to do the math, because I don't do math. I'm an English major. But it's a lot of words, and by the end of the year, you have a book. So, but you do have to make the time.
I get up at 5:30, and I get up early, and from 6 to 8, that's my creative writing time, and then I start my clock at 9. I take an hour break to do what I need to do, and then I start my workday at 9. So I fit it in because it helps me live.
There are people online who do for free, who just do Saturday morning writing sprint. You can join in. It's an hour where they say hello and then say, okay, go write for an hour. So there are all sorts of accountability groups that you can get involved in online, and those kinds of things that'll help you do that.
We have that question.
Going back to your previous answer, or to the first question, how do you write persuasively, asking for something without being exploitative? You said tugging at heartstrings.
Yeah.
Creative writing, I feel like you can spew all the words, but like for grant writing, and I'm pretty new to it, so how do you do that without feeling like you're exploiting the whatever group you're trying to help?
It's all about how you present it and the language that you use, in my opinion. If you are, bemoaning and saying, oh, it's so horrible, it's so terrible for these people, that to me is exploitative. But if you say, here's the situation, and it's not good, but here's how we got somebody out of that situation, and with your help, we can do it for a lot more people, that to me is persuasive.
Yeah.
One other question. What was the social account mentioned that discusses individual sentences?
You know what? I don't have her name right in the top of my brain right now, but I do. If you reach out to me at my website or through my book coaching, I'm at. Are we up there?
Yeah, we are.
So we're up there. You can send me an email and I'll send it to you, or I'll post it somewhere. And also, for anybody who wants my card, I have my card on the table here. I do a monthly newsletter where all about writing and creative writing and things around the web for writers, and it's free, and you can just sign up for that as well. And I do a podcast for people who want to write for kids. I do a monthly podcast as well. So I'm all over the map. I love it. I'm a writer. It's what I do. So, yeah. And I think our time is up. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming in. We enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.